Hello, everyone. I am İleri from Kansas State University. Today, I will present probability from possibility, probabilistic confidentiality for storage systems under nondeterminism. This is a joint work with Nikolai Zeldovich, Adam Chipala, and Franz Pershing from MIT. Nondeterminism poses unique confidentiality challenges, both in implementation and reasoning. Reasoning about non-deterministic systems are significantly harder compared to deterministic ones. In this work, we focus on information leakage due to non-determinism and how to effectively reason about the absence of it. Here is a simple piece of code to demonstrate the problem. It first generates a random bit, and if the value of the bit is 1, it returns the secret bit. If it is 0, it generates a new random bit and returns that. Both 0 and 1 are possible return values at this point. This is referred as possibilistic confidentiality. Possibilistic confidentiality specifications like non-interference are commonly used in the literature. However, if we assume that the random bit is generated uniformly at random, we can see that the result actually correlates with the secret bit. In short, both values are possible, but secret value is more probable. We call this a probabilistic leakage. An attacker who is aware of this behavior can infer the secret with certain confidence. Such vulnerabilities are not limited to randomness. Any non-deterministic event, such as system crashes, can lead to such leakage. Sometimes the probabilities are too complex or cannot be estimated. One example which motivated us to examine this problem is file system crashes. In that case, we need to know the probability of a system failure. What is the probability of the computer losing power? It is dependent on the environment and cannot be estimated during development. So it is natural to ask if we can prevent probabilistic leakages without modeling probabilities. Also, can we do it in a modular and scalable way? Our work answers positively to both of these questions. Before I continue, I want to summarize our contributions. First, we have a probability preservation theorem that derives probabilistic confidentiality guarantees from possibilistic specifications. Second, relatively deterministic non-influence, a possibilistic confidentiality specification that implies probabilistic confidentiality. Third, confirm, a formal verification framework to implement crash-safe storage systems and prove their confidentiality. And finally, confess, a formally verified confidential crash-safe file system. Both confess and conform are implemented in the system. We use labeled transition systems as the basis of our model. However, we augmented the standard model with variables, which represent non-deterministic events in the world. We also have one requirement the systems need to satisfy, which we call relative determinism. Relative determinism states that the oracles need to capture all the non-determinism in the system. We formalize confidentiality as stated in distinguishability. Indistinguishability is captured with a family of equivalence relations parameterized by a user. This parameterization captures that different parts of the system can be considered confidential for different users. Any part of a state that can differ between equivalent states is considered confidential for that user. We formalize the probability of a particular non-deterministic event happening as a family of parameterized probability distributions over relatives. The family represents the probability of a non-deterministic event happening in the world. We call this probability the materialization probability of an oracle. The distributions are parameterized by a user state program public to capture that the possible non-deterministic events may depend on the program that is being run, the user who runs them, and the current state of the system. So far, we were talking about probability of non-deterministic events. However, our problem was about result probabilities. Luckily, we can define the probability of a result based on the event probabilities. We define probability of a particular return value as the sum of the probabilities of oracles that lead to that result. Ideally, probabilistic leakage can be stated as having different result probabilities from equivalent states. However, this unrestricted version is very broad and not always applicable. For example, what if the distribution assigns a positive probability to an oracle that is not valid, such as the random number oracle having a positive materialization probability for a discrete operation? What if your distribution is dependent on confidential data, like the system is more likely to crash if the secret bit is 0? So we define two conditions to constrain the distributions to exclude such cases. The first condition is compatibility. Compatibility restricts the distributions to ones where only possible events are the valid ones. It states that an oracle has a non-zero materialization property if and only if it leads to an execution. The second property is invariance. Invariance restricts the distributions to ones that are independent of the confidential data. It states that the distribution shouldn't change between equivalent states for that user. Finally, we have all the machinery to formally define probabilistic leakage. We say that two programs have probabilistic leakage for a user with respect to a family of equivalence relations if there exists a compatible and invariant distribution and two equivalent states where the result distributions are different. Now we formalized our problem. Let's look into how we can prevent it. The intuition behind the solution is that having a one-to-one matching between executions with same results from equivalent states with same non-deterministic events. Such a matching implies that whichever event happens, the result will be the same from equivalent states. Let's look at our example again to understand it better. If the first generated bit is 0, code goes to else clause and generates and returns another random bit. In this case, the results match in both states. However, if the first generated bit is 1, it returns the secret bit, which means a matching execution with same result from an equivalent state doesn't exist. We name this property matching executions. Matching executions state that for all oracles, if an oracle leads to an execution from a state, then from all equivalent states, it should lead to an execution with the same result. Our probability preservation theorem shows that matching executions is a necessary and sufficient condition for the absence of probabilistic leakage. Since matching executions is a possibilistic definition, this theorem allows us to obtain probabilistic guarantees with possibilistic specifications. Even though matching executions implies probabilistic confidentiality, it falls short in being a good storage system specification. The reason is that it doesn't require the preservation of equivalence for the users of the system. We propose that our confidentiality specification, relatively deterministic non-equivalence, or RDNI for short, which addresses this shortcoming. The first difference is that the states are equivalent with respect to a second user, who may or may not be the current user. The second difference is the result equality is required only if the current user and the equivalent user are the same. Finally, the equivalence is preserved only if the two programs are the same. RDNI ensures the confidentiality of both the new data introduced to the system and the data stored in the system. It has desired properties such as sequential compositionality and preservation under simulations if a side condition is satisfied. We also defined a weaker termination-insensitive version of RDNI. However, this version doesn't imply matching executions, therefore it doesn't provide the probabilistic confidentiality. To accompany RDNI, we also proved a theorem that derives implementation specifications and proofs from abstraction specifications and proofs. The theorem takes an abstraction RDNI proof a simulation proof, and an Oracle refinement independence proof, which is the side condition I mentioned earlier, and construct implementation RDNI proof. Our RDNI transfer theorem provides the desired modularity and scalability. We created Conform to formalize RDNI and to provide a basis for implementing confidential systems. Conform contains constructions for implementing systems with crash and recovery semantics, relatively deterministic non-equivalence for specification, refinement and simulation definitions with oracles for modularity, and meta theory for proving the confidentiality of implementations through abstractions. To demonstrate Conform's capabilities, we implemented Confess. Confess is a simple crash-safe file system that supports multiple users. It provides file ownership and has discretionary access control. It uses termination-insensitive RDNI as its confidentiality specification, and the implementation is extracted into Haskell with some trusted components. The figure summarizes the design of Confess. Confess is designed as vertical stack of 4 layers, each one abstracting the implementation under it. Others depict the different layers. Such layering kept proof complexity in check by simplifying the semantics of an abstraction. This is also a good place to illustrate how oracles appear in practice. In our base layer, we have 3 oracles, one for successful execution, one for system crash, one for encryption key generation, which is modeled non-deterministically. After abstracting the file system log, oracles transform to 3 new ones. One for the successful execution, one for the system crash before a log operation completes, and one for the system crash after a log operation completes. The new oracles are related to the old ones via a refinement relation. We asked 2 questions at the beginning. So did we answer the questions? We asked if we can prevent probabilistic leakages without modeling probabilities. Probability preservation theorem achieves this. We asked if we can do it in a modular and scalable way. RDNI transfer theorem achieves this. And finally, how much effort did the work take? The implementation was 6,000 and proofs were 37,000 lines of code. Our work has 3 limitations. First one is a conceptual limitation. RDNI prohibits implementations that are secure only for specific distributions. For example, an implementation that is secure only if the numbers are generated uniformly at random and insecure otherwise does not satisfy RDNI. We also have 2 limitations of our implementation. Firstly, our model does not provide side-channel security because it doesn't model side channels. And finally, Confess uses termination-insensitive RDNI specifications. There are numerous related works. Oracles are similar to schedulers in Markov decision procedures and probabilistic label transition systems. Key difference is that schedulers turn non-determinism to probabilities, and oracles turn probabilities to determinism. There are multiple possibilistic confidentiality specifications, but RDNI is the first possibilistic specification with probabilistic guarantees. There are other verified confidential software systems, but Confess is the first non-deterministic one. In conclusion, we saw that non-determinism can lead to probabilistic leakages. However, it is possible to get probabilistic guarantees without modeling probabilities. RDNI is the first possibilistic confidentiality specification that provides probabilistic guarantees. Conform is a new confidentiality framework suitable for storage systems. Confess is the first non-deterministic crash-safe confidential file system. Thank you for listening. Please email your questions to atalay@ksu.edu.